What happens when the most beautiful moment of your life is shattered by the ugliest of betrayals? For Amelia Hayes, the world was perfect for 72 hours, cradling her newborn son Noah in the quiet, sterile peace of a hospital room. She was swimming in a haze of love and exhaustion. Her husband Robert, the man she had built her life with, was right beside her. But he wasn't there to celebrate their new family. He was there to detonate a bomb. With the weight of their perfect tiny son still in her arms, Robert uttered the words that would irrevocably tear her world apart, proving that a monster can hide behind the most familiar face, and that the deepest betrayals come not from enemies, but from the ones you love the most. The silence in room 304 of St. Michael's Hospital was a sacred thing. It was a gentle humming silence, punctuated only by the soft rhythmic sighs of a brand new soul and the quiet beeping of a monitor that seemed to be applauding the miracle of it all. Amelia Hayes breathed it in, the filtered, cool air, mingling with the intoxicating scent of baby powder and the faint, clean smell of her son's skin. Noah, her Noah. He was nestled in the crook of her arm. A tiny, perfect bundle of life, his miniature fingers curled loosely around her pinky. Every cliché she had ever rolled her eyes at was suddenly the gospel truth. The overwhelming tidal wave of love. The fierce, primal instinct to protect. The feeling that the entire universe had conspired to create this single, flawless moment. Her body ached with a profound, satisfying soreness, a testament to the monumental effort of bringing him into the world just 3 days prior. Her heart, however, felt weightless, soaring in the pristine, quiet bubble she and her son occupied. Robert, her husband, had been a rock. He'd held her hand, wiped sweat from her brow, and whispered words of encouragement that had felt like a lifeline. When Noah finally arrived, the look on Robert's face was one of pure, unadulterated awe. He'd wept, his broad shoulders shaking. And when the nurse had placed Noah in his arms, he looked at Amelia with eyes that said, "We did this. We created perfection." He had just returned to the room, carrying a paper cup of coffee that smelled bitter and strong, a stark contrast to the nursery-scented air. He'd been fielding calls, updating family, handling the logistics of their life outside these 4 walls. He looked tired, the skin around his blue eyes smudged with exhaustion. But he smiled when he saw her watching him. "How are my 2 champions?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. "We're perfect," Amelia whispered, her gaze not leaving Noah's face. "He's so calm. I can't believe he's ours, Rob. I just can't." "He's incredible," Robert agreed, setting the coffee down on the rolling table. He walked over to the bed, his hand gently stroking Noah's downy hair, careful not to wake him. "You're incredible." Amelia's heart swelled. This was it, the start of their real family, the beautiful, chaotic, wonderful journey they had planned for years. They had the house in the suburbs with the picket fence that was waiting to be painted. They had the nursery decorated in soft grays and yellows, a mobile of smiling felt stars hanging over the crib. They had everything. Robert pulled the uncomfortable plastic visitor's chair closer to her bed. He sat down, leaning forward, his elbows on his knees. The smile was gone, replaced by a strange, taut expression. The air in the room shifted, the sacred silence suddenly feeling heavy, charged. "Amelia," he began, his voice barely audible. He wouldn't meet her eyes, instead staring at a spot on the sterile linoleum floor. There's something I have to tell you." A flicker of annoyance, quickly suppressed, went through her. "Not now, Rob. Whatever it is, it can wait." A problem at his financial firm, a delay with the house painters. It all seemed so trivial. so insignificant compared to the universe she held in her arms. "What is it, honey?" she asked, trying to keep her tone light, trying to steer them back to the bubble. "Is everything okay with work?" He shook his head slowly, a deep shuddering breath escaping his lips. "No, it's not about work." He finally looked up, and the anguish in his eyes was so profound it made her stomach clench. This wasn't about painters or portfolios. This was something else, something terrible. Her mind raced through a Rolodex of horrors. Was one of their parents sick? Had there been an accident? "Robert, you're scaring me. What's happened?" He licked his lips, his gaze dropping to Noah, who stirred his little mouth, making sucking motions in his sleep. "I love him so much, Amelia. I want you to know that. And I love you. I know you're not going to believe that after I say this, but it's true. In my own broken, messed up way, it's true." The preamble was terrifying. It was the kind of speech that precedes a confession, the kind that tries to soften a blow that can't be softened. A cold dread, icy and sharp, began to creep up her spine, chasing away the warm contentment of moments before. "Just say it, Robert." Her voice was tight. He took another deep breath, the sound unnaturally loud in the quiet room. His eyes were glassy, filled with a cocktail of self-pity and fear. "I've been seeing someone," he said. The words hung in the air, grotesque and alien. They didn't belong in this room with the smell of her baby and the rhythmic beat of the monitor. Amelia felt a roaring in her ears, a static that threatened to drown out everything else. It felt like he was speaking a foreign language, one she couldn't possibly comprehend. She stared at him, her mind refusing to process the statement. Seeing someone, what did that even mean? Like a business acquaintance? A therapist? It couldn't mean what she knew it meant. Not now, not here. Her silence was a chasm, and Robert, in his weakness, rushed to fill it. "Her name is Chloe. Chloe Sterling. It's been going on for about a year. It was a mistake, Mia, a terrible, unforgivable mistake. I was stressed, things at work were... It doesn't matter, there's no excuse. But I ended it. I swear I ended it the moment I knew you were pregnant." Amelia's grip on Noah tightened instinctively, her body forming a protective shield around him. A year. A whole year. While they were trying for a baby. While she was going through fertility treatments, the hormonal swings, the crushing disappointments each month. While she was finally joyfully pregnant, rubbing her growing belly and talking to their son, he was with her, Chloe. The name was a poison dart. A bitter, acidic taste filled her mouth. She felt a wave of nausea so intense, she thought she might be sick, right there in the bed. She couldn't speak. She could only stare at the man she thought she knew, who now looked like a complete stranger, a hollowed-out version of her husband. "Why?" The word was a croak torn from her throat. "Why are you telling me this now?" This was the question that hung heaviest in the air. Why now? Why ruin this? If he had ended it, why not take his disgusting secret to the grave? Why bring this filth into the pristine sanctuary of their child's birth? Robert's face crumpled. This, she realized with a sickening lurch, was the main event. The previous confession was just the opening act. He buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with what she supposed was meant to be remorse. "Because I can't lie anymore," he mumbled into his palms. "Because it's all about to come out anyway." He dropped his hands and looked at her, his eyes pleading, desperate. "Amelia, Chloe, she's pregnant." Time stopped. The humming silence, the beeping monitor, the air in her lungs, it all ceased to exist. There was only the weight of her son in her arms and the catastrophic world-ending power of his words. Pregnant. The word echoed in the silent chamber of her skull, mocking her, defiling the sanctity of her own motherhood. He had announced his mistress was pregnant while his wife was still holding their newborn child. It was a cruelty so profound, so exquisitely tailored to inflict the maximum possible pain that it defied belief. It was the stuff of nightmares, of twisted melodramas you watched on a screen, detached and disbelieving. It was not supposed to be real. Amelia looked down at Noah. His tiny chest rose and fell in perfect rhythm. He was oblivious, safe in his cocoon of innocence. A rage pure and white-hot surged through her, eclipsing the shock and the pain. It was a mother's rage, a she-wolf's fury. How dare he? How dare he bring this into Noah's world? How dare he taint the first days of his son's life with this sordid, pathetic drama? She didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. The rage was too deep for that. It settled into a core of ice in her center. Her voice, when she finally found it, was terrifyingly calm, devoid of all warmth, all familiarity. "Get out." Robert flinched as if she had struck him. "Mia, please, let me explain. We can talk about this. We have to." "There is nothing to talk about," she said, her eyes locking onto his. She wanted him to see the abyss that had just opened between them. "You have brought your whore and her baby into the room where my son is sleeping. My son." She enunciated each word with razor-sharp precision. "You are not a husband. You are not a father. You are a parasite. Get out of this room before I call security and have you dragged out." Tears were streaming down his face now, thick and pathetic. "Amelia, please." "I'm so sorry. I didn't know how else." "She's going to make it public. She's demanding things." "That sounds like your problem," Amelia said, her voice like chipping ice. "You and Chloe," she spat the name. "You can deal with it together, but you will not deal with it here. You will not be near me, and you will not be near him." She gestured with her head towards the door. The finality in her tone, the absolute absence of the woman he knew, finally seemed to penetrate his thick skull of self-pity. He stood up, his movements clumsy, lost. He looked from her to Noah, a broken, pleading expression on his face. "Amelia," he whispered one last time. "Out," she commanded. He turned and walked to the door, a man being led to his own execution. He opened it, looked back once more, and then he was gone. The door clicking shut behind him, sealing the room once more in silence. But it was a different silence now. It was not sacred. It was a gaping, screaming void. The bubble had not just burst, it had been atomized. Amelia looked down at Noah, still sleeping, still perfect, and for the first time since his birth, her tears began to fall. They were not tears of joy or exhaustion. They were tears of scorching grief, of profound loss, dropping silently onto the blanket of the son she would now have to raise alone. The drive home from the hospital was a surreal nightmare. Her younger sister Jessica had flown in from Chicago on the first available flight after Amelia's choked, incoherent phone call. Jessica, with her fiery red hair and no-nonsense attitude, had taken one look at Amelia's ashen face and the empty space where Robert should have been, and her expression had hardened into one of grim fury. She didn't ask for details, not at first. She simply took charge. She packed Amelia's bags, cooed over Noah, and handled the hospital discharge with a terrifying efficiency that steamrolled over the chipper nurses and their well-meaning questions about the proud papai. Jessica lied for her, a smooth, effortless stream of excuses. Robert had a sudden work emergency, a huge deal closing. He feels just awful. he couldn't be here. Now, sitting in the passenger seat of her own car with Jessica driving and Noah sleeping soundly in his car seat behind them, Amelia felt like a ghost haunting her own life. Every landmark on the familiar route home was a fresh stab of pain. The coffee shop where she and Robert had their first date. The park where he'd proposed. The real estate office where they'd signed the papers for their forever home. It was all tainted, every memory filmed over with the sickening patina of his betrayal. The house, when they pulled into the driveway, looked like a mockery. The pristine white picket fence, the cheerful blue door, the manicured lawn, it was a stage set for a happy family that had ceased to exist. "Okay," Jessica said, putting the car in park and turning to her. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes were flinty. "We're here. We're going to get you and this little guy inside. I'll bring the bags. You just focus on Noah." Amelia nodded numbly, unbuckling her seatbelt. Her body moved on autopilot, her limbs feeling heavy and disconnected. She got Noah out of his car seat, her movements practiced and tender, a stark contrast to the chaos raging inside her. The moment his small, warm weight settled against her chest, the world narrowed to him. He was her anchor. He was the only thing that was real. Inside the house was suffocatingly quiet. Robert was gone. His car was missing from the garage. A small, cowardly part of her was relieved. A much larger part of her wanted to see him, to scream at him, until her throat was raw to demand answers to the 1,000 questions that were swarming in her mind like angry bees. "Right," Jessica declared, dropping the bags in the foyer. "First things first. Let's get Noah settled in his nursery. Then you are going to sit down and I am going to make you some tea. And then you are going to tell me everything and we are going to make a plan." The nursery was perfect. Too perfect. The soft grey walls, the hand-painted mural of a gentle forest scene she'd spent a month working on the crisp new sheets in the crib. It was all a monument to a shared dream. Laying Noah down in the bassinet they'd set up in her master bedroom felt safer, closer. Downstairs, Jessica handed her a steaming mug of chamomile tea. Amelia wrapped her cold hands around it, the warmth a small, inadequate comfort. She sat on the plush sofa, the same sofa where she and Robert had snuggled and watched movies where they'd mapped out their future. And then the story came pouring out. The words tumbled over each other, a torrent of pain, disbelief, and rage. She told Jessica everything. The hospital room, the confession, the name Chloe Sterling, and the final devastating blow of the pregnancy. Jessica listened without interruption, her expression growing darker with every word. When Amelia finally fell silent, drained and trembling, Jessica reached out and took her hand. Her grip was firm, grounding. "Okay," she said, her voice low and simmering with controlled anger. "Okay, he is a monster. A pathetic, spineless, narcissistic monster. That's a given. We can circle back to the full character assassination later. Right now, we focus on you and Noah." Amelia looked up, her eyes swimming with fresh tears. "What do I do, Jess? What am I supposed to do? He's the father of my child. But there's another one, another baby. What does this even look like?" "It looks like war," Jessica said bluntly. "First, logistics, your joint bank account. I want you to log in right now and transfer half of it into your personal savings account. Not a penny more, not a penny less. Just half. We need to be strategic, not vindictive. Not yet." The idea was jarring. It was so practical, so transactional. But Jessica was right. This wasn't just about a broken heart anymore. It was about survival. With shaking hands, Amelia pulled out her phone, and guided by Jessica's steely calm, she did it. The number on the screen was substantial. Robert's career in finance had been lucrative. Seeing the balance drop by half was a small, cold act of self-preservation. It felt both empowering and deeply, deeply sad. "Done," Amelia whispered. Good Jessica nodded. "Second, you do not talk to him. Not on the phone, not in person. Any communication goes through me, or preferably through an attorney. He will text. He will call. He will beg. He will try to manipulate you with apologies and promises. You are not to engage. Am I clear?" "Yes," Amelia said the word, a thin thread. "Third, and this is the most important," Jessica continued, her eyes boring into Amelia's. "You did nothing wrong. This is not your fault. Do you hear me, Mia? This is 100% on him. His weakness, his deceit, his sickness. You were busy creating a life, and he was busy destroying one. Do not let him or anyone else try to put even an ounce of this on you." The words were a balm. In the back of her mind, a small, insidious voice had already started to whisper. Was I not enough? Did I do something to push him away? Jessica's fierce loyalty was a shield against it. The next few days passed in a blur of baby care and emotional triage. Noah was a demanding and wonderful distraction. His needs were simple and absolute: feeding, changing, sleeping, cuddling. Amelia poured all of her fractured being into meeting them. In the quiet moments, while he slept on her chest, the reality of her situation would come crashing back in, and she would weep silently, her tears soaking the front of her shirt. Robert, as predicted, began his campaign. The texts started first. "Mia, please talk to me. I'm so sorry. I'm dying without you and Noah. I know I don't deserve it, but I need to see my son. Can we just talk? Please. I'll explain everything. It's not what you think." Amelia read them with a numb heart, and following Jessica's orders, did not reply. Then came the voicemails, his voice thick with a performance of remorse she no longer believed. He sounded pathetic, desperate. But beneath the desperation, she heard the unmistakable whine of self-pity. He wasn't sorry for what he did. He was sorry he got caught. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison filled with ghosts. Every room held a memory. The kitchen where they danced while cooking pasta. The study where he'd work late, or so she thought. Had he been emailing her? The bedroom, that was the worst. The king-sized bed felt like a vast, empty tundra. On the second night, Jessica helped her move the mattress from the guest room into the nursery, and they slept there together, a fortress of two women and one tiny baby against the world. It was on the fourth day that the first package arrived. A large bouquet of white lilies, her favorite, with a card. Jessica intercepted it at the door. "I will love you forever. Please let me come home." Jessica read aloud, her voice dripping with scorn. She looked at the opulent arrangement. Lilies, the flower of funerals. How fitting. He's mourning the death of his comfortable life, where he got to have his cake and eat it too. She dropped the card in the trash and started pulling the flowers out of the vase. "What are you doing?" Amelia asked. "I'm not having these funereal things in the house," Jessica said, marching them to the garbage can. "He doesn't get to take up space in here, not even with flowers." The first real crack in Amelia's numbness appeared later that afternoon. She was scrolling through her phone, deleting old happy photos of her and Robert, a painful but necessary act of purging, when a thought occurred to her. Chloe Sterling. The name felt like a physical object lodged in her throat. With a sense of grim determination, she opened a social media app and typed the name into the search bar. Several profiles appeared. She clicked on the first one that matched the general age and location. The profile was public, and it was like looking into an alternate reality of her own life. There she was, Chloe Sterling, blonde, tanned, with a surgically precise smile and eyes that seemed to have a predatory glint even in posed photos. There were pictures of her at expensive restaurants, Amelia recognized. Restaurants Robert had taken her to. There were photos from a trip to Napa Valley last fall, a trip Robert had claimed was a mandatory company retreat. He was not in the photos, but his reflection was there, faint but unmistakable, in the glass of a wine-tasting room window. He was the one taking the picture. Amelia's blood ran cold. This wasn't some fleeting, sordid mistake. This was a parallel life. He had built a world with this woman using the bricks and mortar of their own. He had taken her on their trips to their restaurants and spent their money on her. She kept scrolling her thumb, moving mechanically, each photo a new betrayal. And then she saw it. A photo posted 6 weeks ago. It was a selfie of Chloe, one hand resting proprietorially on a small but definite baby bump. The caption was saccharine and pointed. Sometimes the most beautiful gifts come in the most unexpected packages. Can't wait to meet my little miracle. Mum, Toby, blessed new beginnings. The hashtags were like tiny, vicious daggers. A wave of dizziness washed over Amelia. She felt the phone slip from her hand, clattering onto the hardwood floor. Jessica rushed over her face, a mask of concern. "Mia, what is it? What's wrong?" Amelia couldn't speak. She could only point a trembling finger at the phone screen. Jessica picked it up, her eyes scanning the photo and the caption. The color drained from her face, replaced by a deep, simmering rage. "That bitch," Jessica whispered, her voice a deadly hiss. "She posted this 6 weeks ago. She's been flaunting it." She looked at Amelia, her expression softening with pity. "Mia, I'm so sorry." But it was the comments section that delivered the final crushing blow. Dozens of friends had left congratulatory messages, and near the top, a comment from a name Amelia knew all too well, Catherine Hayes, Robert's mother. The comment was brief, but it was a nuclear bomb. "So thrilled to finally be able to share in your joy, dear. Can't wait to welcome this little one into the family." Catherine Hayes's comment was not just a betrayal, it was a revelation. It was the key that unlocked a darker, more elaborate room in the prison of Robert's deceit. It meant this wasn't just Robert's secret. It was a family conspiracy. His mother knew. The knowledge landed with the force of a physical blow, knocking the air from Amelia's lungs. Catherine, who had cooed over sonogram pictures and thrown her a lavish baby shower. Catherine, who had held her hand at the hospital and called her the daughter I never had. All of it a lie, a performance. While she was celebrating Noah's impending arrival, she was simultaneously acknowledging the existence of this other child, this cuckoo in the nest. They knew Amelia whispered the words, tasting like ash. His family knew. Jessica's face was a thundercloud. That vile woman, that two-faced, hypocritical, I have no words. She knelt in front of Amelia, taking both her hands. "Okay, Mia, this changes things. This isn't just Robert anymore. This is the Hayes family. They've circled the wagons, and you're on the outside. This means we have to get smarter, and we have to get meaner." The first step was hiring a lawyer. Jessica, ever the pragmatist, had already done the research. She'd made a list of the most feared and respected divorce attorneys in the state. At the top of the list was a woman named Evelyn Reed, a lawyer with a reputation for being a shark in a designer suit. Her tagline, according to her website, was, "For amicable separations, see my competitors. For everything else, see me." 2 days later, Amelia found herself sitting in Evelyn Reed's opulent downtown office. It was all steel glass and intimidating modern art. Evelyn herself was a woman in her late 50s, with sharp, intelligent eyes and a haircut so precise it looked like it could cut glass. She wore a tailored crimson jacket that seemed to radiate power. Amelia, feeling small and rumpled in her postpartum clothes, recounted her story for what felt like the 100th time. She left nothing out: the timeline of the affair, the hospital room confession, the financial drain for trips and gifts, the public social media posts from Chloe, and the final devastating confirmation that Robert's mother was not only aware, but complicit. Throughout the entire narrative, Evelyn Reed was silent, her fingers steepled under her chin, her gaze unwavering. She didn't offer sympathy, she absorbed facts. When Amelia finished her voice hoarse, Evelyn made a few notes on a legal pad. Mr. Hayes made 2 critical errors. Mrs. Hayes Evelyn said, her voice crisp and devoid of emotion. The first was his timing. Confessing to you in a hospital bed less than 72 hours after you've given birth is an act of such profound emotional cruelty that no judge will look upon it favorably. It establishes a pattern of extreme callousness. The second, and far more significant error, was commingling his infidelity with the family finances. She leaned forward. The trips to Napa, the expensive dinners, the gifts. Were these paid for with his personal credit card or a joint account? I don't know, Amelia admitted. We have a joint checking account and several joint credit cards. He handled most of the bill payments. My office will subpoena those records immediately, Evelyn stated. Every dollar he spent on Miss Sterling is marital asset dissipation. We will claw back every cent. But more than that, it proves that this affair was not a mere personal failing. It was a financial drain on the marital estate. It was theft, from you and from your son. The word theft was a revelation. It reframed Robert's actions not just as a betrayal of love, but as a calculated crime. And the mother's involvement, Evelyn's lips curved into a smile that was anything but warm. Oh, that's the icing on the cake. That's a gift. It dismantles any argument they might try to make about this being a simple, regrettable mistake. It proves conspiracy and intent to deceive. It will be very useful when we discuss custody arrangements for Noah. Amelia's heart seized. Custody, of course, Evelyn said, matter-of-factly. They will fight for visitation, perhaps even partial custody. The Hayes family, from what you've described, is concerned with image and legacy. They will want their heir, but we will argue that Robert's character, his proven deceitfulness, his mother's complicity, and his decision to introduce this level of chaos and instability into his son's life from the moment of birth makes him an unfit guardian for anything more than supervised visitation. At least for now. The meeting with Evelyn Reed was brutal cold and utterly terrifying. But for the first time since Robert's confession, Amelia felt a flicker of power. She had an advocate. She had a weapon. Armed with a new grim sense of purpose, Amelia began her own investigation. Jessica had been right. This was war, and she needed intelligence. She handed over the login information for their joint accounts and credit cards to Evelyn's forensic accounting team. But she also began to dig into Chloe Sterling. Who was this woman? It wasn't difficult. Chloe's desire for public validation meant her digital footprint was vast. She was a lifestyle influencer, a title Amelia found vaguely nauseating. Her feed was a curated gallery of brunches, designer bags, and yoga poses. But between the superficial posts, Amelia started to find connections. A tagged photo from a charity gala 2 years ago showed Chloe in the background of a group shot that included Richard Hayes, Robert's father, and the founder of Hayes Financial. They had known each other. This wasn't a random woman Robert met at a bar. This was someone who had been in their orbit. Amelia went further diving into business networking sites. She found Chloe Sterling's professional profile. Her work history was a series of short-lived marketing roles at various financial firms, and then a jarring detail. For 6 months ending just before her affair with Robert allegedly began, Chloe Sterling had worked as a junior marketing associate at Sterling Price, the biggest rival to Hayes Financial. Her own name was in the company title. Sterling Price. Chloe Sterling. A cold knot formed in Amelia's stomach. This couldn't be a coincidence. She presented her findings to Jessica, laying out the connections on the dining room table, like a detective mapping a crime. "Jess, look at this," Amelia said, her voice tight with a new kind of dread. "Her last name is Sterling. The firm is Sterling Price. She worked there. She was at a gala with Robert's father 2 years ago. This isn't some random affair." Jessica stared at the printouts, her brow furrowed. "My God, Mia, what if this isn't about love or even an affair? What if this is corporate espionage?" The theory was outlandish, something from a movie. But the pieces fit with a terrifying logic. What if Chloe had targeted Robert? What if she'd seduced him to get information, to destabilize him, to hurt his family's company? The pregnancy then would be the ultimate leverage. A biological link that could give her a permanent claim on the Hayes family fortune and legacy. The thought was both horrifying and, in a strange way, clarifying. It made Robert seem less like a calculating monster and more like what he was, a weak, arrogant fool who had been played. It didn't excuse him, nothing could, but it changed the nature of the game. Amelia wasn't just up against a mistress. She was up against a predator who had been planning this for years. Confirmation of this new reality came a week later in the form of a crisp, formal letter delivered by a courier. It was from Chloe Sterling's lawyer. It was not a request for a quiet arrangement. It was a declaration of war. The letter was audacious. It detailed Chloe's long-term committed relationship with Robert. It claimed he had made numerous promises to leave Amelia and build a life with her and their child. It stated that their child, a boy, was due in less than 7 months, and that Chloe expected a full and formal integration into the Hayes family. And then came the demands. A multi-million-dollar trust fund to be established for her unborn son. A monthly stipend for Chloe herself, commensurate with the lifestyle she had become accustomed to. A residence in the same exclusive suburb where Amelia and Robert lived. And most gallingly, a legal agreement formalizing co-parenting rights between Robert and Chloe, and establishing a visitation schedule that would begin the moment her son was born. She was in essence demanding to be installed as a second formal wife. But it was the final paragraph that was the most chilling. It subtly hinted that if her demands were not met, certain sensitive business information regarding Hayes Financial's practices might find its way into the hands of regulators and competitors. It was blackmail wrapped in legalese. Amelia read the letter twice, her hands shaking so badly the paper rattled. This was not a woman scorned. This was a corporate raider, and her target was the entire Hayes empire. And she was using her baby, and Amelia's baby as her ammunition. Amelia immediately called Evelyn Reed. She read the letter aloud, her voice trembling with fury. Evelyn was silent for a moment after she finished. "Well," she said, and Amelia could hear the grim satisfaction in her voice. "She's overplayed her hand. The blackmail threat is a fatal mistake. This just went from a messy divorce to a potential criminal case." Forward me that letter, Mrs. Hayes. Things are about to get very, very interesting. That night, for the first time, Robert broke the wall of silence and came to the house. Amelia was rocking Noah to sleep when the doorbell rang sharp and insistent. Jessica, who had extended her stay indefinitely, went to the door. Amelia heard their muffled, angry voices from the foyer. "You are not welcome here, Robert. I need to see her, Jess. I need to explain. You saw the letter from Chloe's lawyer. This is out of control. It's been out of control since you decided to cheat on your pregnant wife. This is a mess of your own making. You can leave now." "I'm not leaving until I see Amelia and my son." Hearing his possessive claim on Noah, my son sent a shard of ice through Amelia's heart. She gently placed the sleeping baby in his bassinet, took a deep breath, and walked out of the bedroom and to the top of the stairs. He looked terrible. His suit was rumpled, his face was pale and unshaven, and his eyes were wild with panic. He looked like a cornered animal. When he saw her, his face flooded with a desperate hope. "Mia," he pleaded, taking a step towards the stairs. "Thank God, we need to talk. We need to present a united front against her." Amelia looked down at him from the top of the staircase, a queen surveying a traitor in her court. The fear and the grief were still there, but they were now encased in a hard shell of resolve. The woman who had wept in the hospital room was gone. A united front, she asked, her voice echoing in the cavernous foyer. It was cold and clear, with no trace of its former warmth. "There is no we, Robert. There is you, your mistress, and the mess you've made. You will deal with her. My lawyer will deal with you. Now get out of my house." Robert stared up at her, his face a mask of disbelief. It was clear he had expected tears, recriminations, perhaps even a sliver of the old Amelia he could manipulate. He did not expect this cold, implacable stranger. "Your house," he stammered, his desperation curdling into indignation. "This is my house too. I paid for it. You paid for it with money you were simultaneously spending on your affair," Amelia countered, her voice dangerously level. "According to my lawyer, that makes your claim somewhat complicated. But you're right. Let me rephrase. Get out of the house that I am currently occupying with my son. Your son, the one you seem to forget when you're making promises to other women." Jessica stood by the door, arms crossed, a silent, formidable guard. "Mia, you don't understand what she is?" Robert's voice rose, cracking with panic. "This isn't what it looks like. Chloe, she's not some girl I fell for. She's a predator. She targeted me. She's threatening to ruin my family, my father's company." It was the most pathetic defense imaginable. "I'm not a villain. I'm just an idiot." Amelia laughed. It was a hollow, bitter sound that held no humor. "She's threatening to ruin your father's company. And what exactly did you do to my family, Robert? To our family? You set a bomb in the middle of it and lit the fuse. The fact that you're now getting burned in the explosion is not my concern. But the letter, the blackmail," he pleaded, taking another step closer to the stairs. "We have to work together. If we fight each other, she wins. She'll take everything." "Let her," Amelia said, and the sincerity in her voice finally seemed to silence him. "Let her take the money. Let her ruin Hayes Financial. Do you think I care about your father's legacy right now? Do you think I care about this house or the stock portfolio? You brought this plague into our lives. If the price of getting you and her out of my life is burning everything else to the ground, then I will happily light the match." She saw the fight drain out of him, replaced by a profound, dawning horror. He was finally beginning to understand. He had not just broken her heart. He had annihilated her entire value system. The life they had built, the future she had cherished, she was willing to sacrifice all of it to be free of him. He had lost all his leverage. "Go home, Robert," she said, her voice softening just a fraction, not with pity, but with sheer exhaustion. "Go home to your parents who helped you lie. Figure out how to deal with the consequences of your actions, but do not come here again." He stared at her for a long moment, then his shoulders slumped in utter defeat. He turned without another word and walked out the door. Jessica shut it firmly behind him, the sound of the deadbolt sliding into place, echoing like a gunshot in the silent house. The confrontation left Amelia shaking, but resolute. Robert's panicked confession confirmed her theory. Chloe was a hostile actor. This knowledge became the cornerstone of Evelyn Reed's strategy. "She's a classic honey trap with a 21st century twist," Evelyn explained over the phone a few days later. Her team had been working relentlessly. Seduce a high-level, weak-willed executive, get pregnant to secure a biological claim, and then use the threat of scandal and corporate espionage to extort the family. It's brilliant, in a sociopathic sort of way, but her greed made her sloppy. The sloppiness was the blackmail letter. By putting the threat in writing, Chloe had given them a powerful weapon. Evelyn's first move was not to respond to Chloe's lawyer. Instead, she arranged a meeting with Richard and Catherine Hayes and their family attorney. Amelia was not present, but Evelyn recounted the meeting to her in vivid detail. She had laid out the situation in stark terms. She presented copies of the receipts from Robert's affair. She presented Chloe's brazen social media posts. She presented the letter from Chloe's lawyer, highlighting the paragraph containing the blackmail. And she presented her own findings on Chloe's connection to their main competitor, Sterling Price. "I told them they had two options," Evelyn said. "Option 1, they could fight us. They could side with Robert, try to paint Amelia as hysterical, and engage in a long, ugly public divorce and a simultaneous, ruinously expensive settlement with Miss Sterling. Their family name would be dragged through the mud, their company secrets would likely be exposed, and the scandal would define their legacy." Evelyn paused for effect. "Or option 2, they could work with us. They could recognize that Robert's catastrophic judgment has put the entire family and their business at risk. They could align their interests with the only two truly innocent parties in this entire mess, Amelia and her son Noah, a Hayes by blood with an untainted mother." It was a masterful stroke, reframing Amelia not as an adversary, but as the only viable path to saving the Hayes family's reputation. "We are offering them a way to contain this," Evelyn continued. "We will handle Miss Sterling. We will pursue a quiet, swift divorce for you that heavily favors you and Noah in exchange for your complete discretion. You get full physical custody, a generous child support, and alimony package, the house and a gag order on all parties. In return, they get to salvage their name and fight for their company without the added mess of a public family war." The Hayes, faced with the complete destruction of everything they had built, chose self-preservation. They capitulated. The next phase of the war was fought entirely by the lawyers. Evelyn Reed's office sent a blistering response to Chloe Sterling's attorney. It rejected all of her demands. It accused her of extortion, citing her own letter as evidence. It stated their intention to file a police report and notify the state bar of her lawyer's participation in a criminal act. It also included a crucial, devastating piece of information that Evelyn's private investigator had uncovered. Chloe Sterling had not, in fact, been employed by Sterling Price. She had been fired. The reason, according to a confidential source, was suspicion of corporate espionage against a different firm. while it was never proven the accusation alone was enough to destroy her credibility. Furthermore, the sterling in sterling price was her uncle, who had reportedly disowned her branch of the family years ago for unethical tendencies. Chloe was not a corporate raider backed by a powerful rival. She was a lone wolf, a grifter with a history of deceit who had vastly overestimated her own leverage. Her legal threats crumbled. The brazen confidence evaporated, replaced by a panicked scramble for a settlement. Any settlement. The blackmail threat was off the table. The demands for a house and a lifestyle disappeared. It all came down to one thing: a paternity test for her unborn child and a standard child support arrangement contingent on Robert being the father. It was during these negotiations that the final, most unexpected twist emerged. Chloe's due date, which she had publicly claimed was in late February, was suddenly and quietly revised by her lawyer to early January. Evelyn Reed pounced on the discrepancy. She lied about her due date, Evelyn told Amelia, her voice sharp with suspicion. She tried to make the timeline fit more neatly with her affair with Robert. Why Evelyn demanded that Chloe submit to an immediate court-ordered prenatal paternity test, a procedure that is safe but not commonly performed unless there is significant dispute. Chloe's lawyer objected strenuously, citing medical risks. "She's bluffing," Evelyn insisted. "There's something she doesn't want us to know." We file the motion. We force the issue. The legal pressure mounted. Faced with a court order, Chloe Sterling folded completely. Her lawyer called Evelyn's office with an offer. She would drop all claims against Robert Hayes and the Hayes family. She would sign any document, agree to any gag order. She wanted no money, no support, no contact. She just wanted to be left alone. The sudden reversal was bizarre. It made no sense. Why would a woman who had orchestrated such an elaborate scheme for over a year suddenly walk away with nothing? The answer came 2 weeks later, not from a lawyer, but from Jessica, who was still compulsively monitoring Chloe's social media. Mia, Jessica said, walking into the living room, her face pale with shock. She held out her phone. "You need to see this." It was a post from one of Chloe's friends, a woman Amelia recognized from photos on her feed. It was a picture of a group of women at a baby shower. The banner in the background read, "Congratulations, Chloe and Michael." In the center of the photo was a radiant Chloe, her pregnant belly prominent, holding hands with a man Amelia had never seen before. He was handsome, smiling with his other hand placed lovingly on her stomach. The caption read, "So happy to celebrate my bestie Chloe Sterling and her wonderful fiancé Michael on their baby boy. Can't believe you two are getting married next month. True love baby joy fiancé Michael." Robert wasn't the only man. He wasn't even the main one. He was the side piece, the mark, the wealthy gullible fool she was shaking down for money, while her real life with her actual fiancé continued uninterrupted. The baby was almost certainly this Michael's. The entire affair, the pregnancy announcement, the legal threats, it was all a massive, audacious fraud, a shakedown. Amelia stared at the picture, at the smiling faces, at the pastel decorations, at the lie of it all. She didn't feel anger. She didn't feel jealousy. She felt a profound, cleansing wave of nothing. It was the last piece of the puzzle, the final confirmation that none of this had ever been about her. She had just been collateral damage in a game she didn't even know was being played. Robert had been utterly, comprehensively, and pathetically duped. He had destroyed his marriage, his family, and his life for a woman who was playing him from the very beginning. Amelia started to laugh. It wasn't the bitter, hollow laugh from the staircase. It was a real, genuine, cathartic laugh. A laugh of absurdity. A laugh of freedom. She leaned back on the sofa laughing until tears streamed down her cheeks, washing away the last remnants of the woman she used to be. The revelation of Chloe's engagement was the final cleansing fire. The knowledge that the entire affair was a calculated fraud, a hustle, not a romance, severed the last thread of personal pain. Amelia had not been inadequate. She had been collateral damage in a failed shakedown. This clarity transformed her grief into resolve, clearing the scorched earth of her old life to build something new. The legal proceedings accelerated with astonishing speed. Aware of the full scope of Robert's foolishness and Chloe's deception, the Hayes family capitulated, completely desperate to make the scandal disappear. Their lawyers worked swiftly with Evelyn Reed, not to fight, but to facilitate a quiet, unconditional surrender. The divorce settlement was a testament to their desperation. In a single brief meeting, it was done. Amelia watched as Robert, a diminished ghost of the man she married, signed away their life together without a word. She was granted the house free and clear, a substantial investment portfolio to secure her and Noah's future, and an alimony and child support package that far exceeded any legal requirement. Most importantly, she received sole physical and legal custody of Noah. Robert was permitted supervised visitation twice a month, a stark clinical arrangement that underscored his monumental failure. He had lost his son before he ever had a chance to be a father. Leaving the lawyer's office for the last time, Amelia felt not triumph, but a quiet emptiness that was quickly replaced by a sense of profound peace. The war was over. Returning to the house, she began the work of reclamation. It was no longer a crime scene of painful memories. It was her sanctuary. With Jessica's help, she purged every trace of Robert. His clothes were donated, his belongings boxed up. The heavy masculine furniture in his study was sold, replaced by a sun-drenched drafting table and architectural supplies. She was finally breathing her own air in her own space. Life settled into a new rhythm, orchestrated by the simple, pressing needs of her son. The passing months were marked by Noah's milestones, his first smile, his first laugh, the determined way he began to crawl. In focusing entirely on him, Amelia found she was also healing herself. She reconnected with old friends, took long walks in the crisp autumn air, and slowly, sketch by sketch, began to rediscover the passion for design she had set aside for her marriage. The consequences for the other players in the drama unfolded at a distance. Chloe Sterling married her fiancé, had her baby, and moved out of state, disappearing like the grifter she was. The Hayes family's reputation was tarnished, and Robert was quietly demoted to a back-office role within his father's company, a gilded cage for the family disgrace. The supervised visitations were awkward, painful affairs. Robert was a stranger to Noah, and the stilted, monitored interactions only highlighted the chasm he had created. About a year after the world had shattered, Amelia was in her study sketching. Noah, now a happy toddler, played at her feet. The house was peaceful. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I know you have no reason to listen. I saw a picture your sister posted of Noah. He looks happy. You look happy, I'm glad. I know I lost the right to be his father, but I hope one day I can earn the right to be a man he isn't ashamed of." It was Robert. The tone was different, stripped of self-pity, holding only a stark admission of failure. Amelia looked at her son, a perfect, beautiful boy, who was the only good thing to come from the wreckage. She would never forget or forgive the betrayal, but the burning hatred had cooled to embers. For Noah's sake, perhaps peace was possible. She typed a simple reply. "He is very happy. I hope you find peace, Robert." She put the phone down, her past finally relegated to a story. The future was here, in the sunlit room, in the sound of her son's laughter, and in the unshakable foundation of a life she had built for them, all on her own. Amelia's story is a harrowing journey through the depths of betrayal, but it is ultimately a story of incredible resilience. She took the most painful moment of her life and refused to let it define her. She transformed from a victim of her husband's deceit into the powerful architect of her own future, proving that a mother's strength is the most formidable force on earth. Her story reminds us that even when our worlds are shattered, we have the power to sweep away the ashes and build a new life, stronger and more beautiful than before. What did you think of Amelia's journey? Could you ever forgive a betrayal of this magnitude? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please give this video a like, share it with someone who needs to hear a story of strength, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real-life dramas that will leave you speechless. Thank you for listening.